All right, gentlemen, I am not fishing today. I'm getting the smoker ready. I'm just letting it rise up to temp and kind of sterilize. Then I'm going to put a brisket and some chicken in there. Happy Easter is what this is. But the reason we're here today, the reason you're here today, what you want to see, the motor install on a PDL 106. I've got everything I need for it, minus the battery. The battery takes another week to get in. So I'll have a lightweight battery that's 17 pounds. I think it's 10.6 by 6.6 by 8.5. So it'll fit in my front hatch where I like my battery to go. And it's gonna attach directly to the power pole mount in my kayak. I'm gonna use my rudder to steer it. I'm gonna use the motor to propel forward across long distances. And let's talk about how it's gonna work. Obviously, we're gonna start with the motor and how he's connected. The motor is going to connect to the transom mount, which I'll put the links for everything in the chat down below, and the final cost will be at the end of the video for you guys. But the motor will attach to the transom, which attaches to the power pole mount station. That's heavy enough to hold, 25, 30 pounds easily, if not more like 50, right, if I wanted to. Over here, I have U-bolts that I'm going to attach to the pole. And that is where the pulleys and the carabiners are going to get attached to. That's going to allow that paracord to pull with less resistance. And I'm going to snap this handle in to raise and lower this trolling mounting without having to get around. Trolling motor, not trolling mounting. That's a different type of video, guys. All right. That power is going to connect directly to the trolling motor receptacle. This is an off-brand. I heard they may have some issues from a buddy of mine. We'll see how it does. If they give me problems, I'll replace them and put a good brand in there. That's going to connect to 8-gauge wire. This trolling motor uses 8-gauge wire, so I kept 8-gauge wire to go all the way through and make sure we can handle the continuous 30 amp that comes through the trolling motor. 30 amps continuous. The power with module, I think is what it stands for, is actually an RF 12 volt reversible polarity auxiliary switch with a wireless button. So I'll be able to go forward and backwards wirelessly without having to mess with anything other than the remote control. And then I have my ring terminals, which are going to connect the 8-gauge wire inside the kayak directly to the battery. Tools that you need. Man, you don't need a lot for this. I've got a terminal assortment kit just in case I need any adapters. I picked up a second one because my other ones get picked through quite a bit. I do a lot of this stuff now. I have some crimpers. I have heat shrink wrap, which, as you see, has up to 1 inch in it, which is going to go great. It'll go over the top of the motor. And then I'm going to use the rest of the heat shrink to come on down and make sure that all the wire is covered up and professional grade looking. I want it to look nice, and then I'm going to put some rod wrap around it to keep hooks and such from getting stuck on it. We have electrical tape for the odds and ends where I need to connect, and then a standard screwdriver. This is what you need to connect it minus the battery. It doesn't have to be complicated to connect a motor to your kayak, gentlemen. Let's get into it. Let's put this motor on. A couple things I missed are like drill bits and a few small pieces. You'll find them in the description. Now the transom plate that I ordered, the bolt sizes are a little bit off. Not bad, but enough so I wanted to wallow them out a little bit to make sure I didn't strip these screws out going in. It's important that these screws go into the power pole mount area as straight as possible. And you don't need crazy pressure, just enough pressure to hold the screws down. This particular mount came with these plastic brackets that just screw together, and then the clamps hold the bracket in place. I'll probably end up gluing them down just so they don't fall off when taking the mount off and on, because I can see myself leaving that at the wrap. I don't have to go crazy tight today, but gentlemen, alright guys, shaping up, it's coming together. We're doing it today with the motor. Let's try like an adult. Alright guys, it's shaping up, it's coming together. We kind of see what we're going to be working with here. And the plan is to get it so it can pop up like that and deploy down quickly. I don't want that hard. Obviously, I want that rope on there. This is one of the tools left out. It's just a step bit, and I'm going to use it here beside the power pole mount where I know there's nothing, it's hollow. tape my line to keep it together. Makes it easier to feed down through. I'm going to trim the ends of my 8-gauge wire and put 8-gauge connectors to connect the 12-volt trolling motor male port and female port. To connect the 12-volt female port. Some heat shrink wrap and electrical tape to make sure that the connectors stay connected as I transport the kayak. But we do the same to attach the male connector to the trolling motor. I'm going to use this shrink wrap to make the cables look really professional, melt them down, and then cover it up with a fishing rod holder. That way hooks don't get set in it. The electrical tape here will keep the shrink wrap in place for sure. We connect, we crimp. We connect, and then we crimp. We wrap up ends to make sure everything's covered and looks professional. And then feed the ports down through and screw the 12-volt trolling motor connector down. It's my first exposure. I didn't expect it to feel as loose as it does. I'm going to assume some may feel a little more stiff and connect-like. Just in case you guys are curious, I went up to 1 7/32 inch. So 1 7/32 inch is what that was calling for there. Perfect fit for it. So then I terminate the other ends with female connectors. These are actually 10 gauge. The wire needs to be 8 or 10 gauge to support 30 amp consistent. I'll throw on a 30 amp connector that has 10 gauge wire, and then I read the instructions for my PWM. I connect the trolling motor to the M2 and N1, M1 being the negative, M2 being the positive, and then I bring out my lead batteries to test. All right. I connect them into the 12-volt negative and 12-volt positive based on positive and negative. Rudimentary tests, hodgepodge batteries, 14 gauge wire, Polarity reversing PDM, 30 amp hour fuse going directly into the trolling motor mount. That's pretty cool, right? Forward, reverse. I'm going to drill this through with a 1/4 inch drill bit. It'll be down in the description. And then I'm going to tie this rope around it with a pulley in the middle so that when I pull on this rope, it gives me a little extra leverage and it's not quite so tough to clamp and retrieve the trolling motor into a locked or loose position. I use these U-bolts, and I'm just kind of checking them out right now to make sure they fit. But I wanted them up by that close by the pulley so that rope doesn't move a lot. It stays pretty static. I want to get standard and expected behavior out of this. Pull some rope through. I think I ended up pulling about 10 foot through, even though I cut a few more feet off. You'll see the end result soon. Alright, man. I'm out here with 28 minutes to go on my SD card, and this is the maiden voyage with the motor. Motor down. Alright, so here's what we have. The motor, the deployment system, right? It's pretty simple. I'll talk about it. The 30 amp fuse to make sure everything stays safe. We have the wireless PWM. So we're gonna see what it's like with a motor on the Old Town. Let's deploy. I don't know how long this will last. The battery I'm using isn't that good. I want to go across the lake, drink a beer, and come back. That's the plan. Cross the lake, drink a beer, come back. Let's see how this goes. Okay, first thing I know, we're too far up. We gotta go down. I had these thumb bolts on kind of tight. Let's see if we can find a pair of pliers. We need to put this motor in the water some. Just so we're clear, you should not use 14 gauge wire with 30 amp. Hopefully he's not the big one. Hey bud, you got a pair of pliers? If you don't mind. To lower my motor some, it's kind of up a little bit. Just need to drop it down some in the back. If you, it's just a little tight back there.
Got it.
Should just be.
Which one you want?
There's a thumb bolt down toward the bottom.
This one?
Yeah, that should let it drop about an inch.
Yeah, we go get it. That's, I think it's stripped.
Yeah, he's on there pretty good. Yeah, hey, that's why I'm trying to put the motor on here. It's the maiden voyage. I thought I'd get it up and out of the way some to help with the weight, but I'm like, it's too far. It sputters. Let me give it a spoon, see what it does. Oh yeah, that's the propulsion. Yeah, you don't mind. And I'll adjust them when I get home. Let's see what we're talking about.
Be
here.
careful, game wardens love to give people tickets with motors.
Right.
Because they say it's a concealed device now. You don't have to register.
They'll get you. I'm getting ready to register it. It's free here in Anderson, thankfully. I just got to take a picture of my vessel to the tax office. But I think I might put them a little lower at home, but I think that's gonna.
Yeah, they have a tendency to like to give you a big $300 fine to catch you.
Oh yeah, they'll get you. Hey, look at that go though. I appreciate it, buddy. All right. We're moving water now. This is an Old Town 106 on the water with the motor higher than it needs to be. And we're going. We're going. If I want to turn, I can turn. If I want to move water, I can move water. Hands off. Let's go all the way down. Forward thrust. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah. Oh man, that's essentially an EPDL. That helps to get going. I think I can get a little more thrust out of the lithium motor and some 8-gauge wire all the way through, making some PWM modifications. Right now it's just got one speed, but we're moving. What can you say? That's a wireless PWM, and I'm going about, I don't know, if I had to guess, 2.5 miles per hour without it programmed. It definitely needs programming so I can hit some speed here. So what I need to do, add the 14 or add the 8-gauge wire from the PWM to the front. I need to, oh my, we're going into the wind and now we're covering some water. Oh my. Woo. This is where it's at. This is smooth.
Places that we could go. All the places that we could go. All you need is to believe it. Do you see
That's good.
Do you feel
Let's take it home.
Oh, the places that we could go.
We got to get it legal now. We'll go do that Friday. We got to go to the South Carolina tax office here in Anderson where it's free. Show them my vessel, and that'll be that. That's the shit. Alright guys, so let's talk about what we really have here. We've got a motor attached to a transom kit, attached to a 12-volt motor, trolley motor connector, attached to a 30 amp fuse that runs to a wireless PDM. That wireless PDM then runs directly to the battery, and it's that easy to get this guy motorized. With that, I was out here on Lake Broadway moving water on a motorized kayak on an Old Town Sportsman 106 PDL, PDL 106. I think it's PDL 106. I don't care. At this point, who does? But I'm out here with a motor. I deployed him when I went out there. I'm going to take him off to load him up and go home. And that's it. I'll be able to cover great spans of water with the click of a button. How much more beautiful does it get than that? When I want to go the other way, I hit the button and I go the other way. And I can program this. I'm going to do it tonight. And then we'll do another test next week. And we'll talk about this. And we'll talk about how it's going. And in a couple weeks, we'll have a real battery. And we'll have the setup finalized. And we'll have the real wire in it. It'll be 8 gauge all the way through to make sure it handles 30 amp. Because that's what we're drawing. 30 amp from the motor to the PWM. And then the PWM's kicking out the signal and giving us what we want to the battery. One thing I want to note is this isn't my final setup. Like the motor, right now the deployment's easy. If I pull this, it's probably going to come down. Oh no, it's not on there. This all revolves around this rope here being around that knot on the end of that handle. If that handle can't click down like it's supposed to, it's never going to deploy right. So that's going to be a problem I'm going to face. I can easily get it set up for the initial deployment, but I've got to figure out how I'm going to deploy it otherwise. So this would be an example of my initial deployment. I would be down when I arrived. I would back into the water. I would get in the kayak. When I'm in the kayak, I just want to pull this lever. I'm going to deploy. That's easy. Getting out, if it comes over that, that becomes a problem. And especially if this doesn't come back out. So I need that spring loaded somehow, which it already is. I just need to be able to release it. And I need my motor to be able to retrieve at least about that level. I'm going to have to drop this guy some. I need to program the PWM and then show you guys how this all works next week when it's completed. But we're going to talk about it, and yeah. Thanks for stopping by. Hope this helped. If you're interested in doing this, it's not hard to do. It costs a little bit, but not a lot.